Starting, we're good.
All right. Hello, welcome to the July MacAdmins Meetup here at the lovely St. Joseph's University campus. Thanks to Mike and the St. Joseph people for hosting us this week, this month. Yeah, thank you very much, and hope you all have a good meeting here. So we're going to go right into what's new. Since last time we were here, there were some updates, obviously, to iOS 11, tvOS 11, watchOS, and of course, updates to High Sierra and Safari. There was some Office updates that we'll talk about, and the new MacBook Pro models that everybody's excited about. We'll also hit up the security roundup and talk about a few other items of interest and finish up with our conference roundup. So first up, iOS 11. So iOS 11.4.1 was released. There are fixes and issues that prevented some users from viewing the last known location of their AirPods. Also improves the reliability of syncing mail, contacts, and notes with Exchange accounts, which is very big for us since we're a large Exchange shop. And also brings USB restricted mode, which we'll talk about a little bit more in depth. There were 22 CVEs in this update as well, patching 8 processes. Details at the link there. tvOS 11.4.1 was also released. This is no new features. This is mainly just a bug and stability fix patch. 18 CVEs covering about 5 different processes, links to both to the security update article and the OS article there as well. watchOS 4.3.2 was also released. That's also mainly just bug fixes and security patches. 14 CVEs fixing 6 processes. I'm sorry. Moving on to High Sierra. 10.13.6 was released while we were away. Though among the big things is AirPlay 2 for iTunes 12.8 for those of you who use AirPlay. And there were some fixes in Photos and Mail. Nothing specifically that affects MacAdmins in this release that are documented. But it's generally all a better build than I think some of the earlier versions of High Sierra we've seen. So it's definitely getting into that stable version, and next up is Mojave. So
I forgot to put in the document. I heard last week at Penn State MacAdmins that Apple finally fixed the bug of installing multiple packages at the end of the year.
Oh, okay. And it's part of install application. Okay.
All right. Install application can only reliably install one package, and they fixed that in 10.12.6.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
The 10.13.6 I thought came out a little quick, because usually it's like a 2-month cycle. That's what it seems to be.
Well,
I was surprised it came out because .5
usually not a 2-month cycle. They pretty much do as many betas iterations as they can, or as they need to, essentially. So some betas will take longer to bake than others. I think, what was it, the 10.13.3 was pretty short compared to 10.13.2. And then there was a long time between 10.13.3 and 10.13.4. But I think like between the time between 10.13.4 and 5 and 10.13.5 and 6 was pretty short, because they had about 4, well, the 10.13.4 to 10.13.5 had 5 iterations of the betas. And I think the 10.13.5 to 10.13.6, there was about 5 as well, 4 or 5. So
yeah, and also falls into the same calendar pattern as 10.11 and 10.12. The .6s for those were all released mid-July.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So post WWC, this is the last version you're going to get, because everybody's focusing on Mojave.
Mojave, right? Which usually comes out usually October, right?
End of September, early October.
Yep. It's been creeping up. It used to be middle of October, and now it's more like end of September.
Yeah.
So also Safari 11.1.2 was released. Details there, mostly a combination of some of the other CVEs from that were also affecting particularly WebKit. Anything that involves WebKit is usually covered in the Safari update. Moving on to Office 2016, 16.15 was released. Usual, it's like mostly fixes to Outlook, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. New features will depend on which version of the license you have. O365 gets all the new features. 2016 gets some of the new features. 2019 will get more, but not all. Also, another update to Microsoft Auto Update 4.1. Just a minor bug fixes and stability patch. Details will, the link to details will tell you all about how to use it. Skype for Business 16.19.132 was released, and still waiting for Teams to take that over, which we know is coming at some point. And yes, the Office 2019 preview is now available. As I mentioned before, it's like everything that's different about 2019 is just really in the license file, as they've said before. So there's a feature in licensing matrix that Paul Bowden put up on his unofficial site that details which version gets which features. So moving along to the 2018 MacBook Pros. We got new 13-inch and 15-inch models that come with the touch bar. So the touch bar is not going away, despite everybody who's hating the fact that the escape key is not actually, a functional key. The models will have i7 and i9 processors, which will speed up, in some instances, up to 2.9 gigahertz. These models will now, you can get them configured for up to 32 gigs, particularly the 15-inch models of RAM. So that's something that's probably very, very attractive to a lot of people. And on the 15-inch models, you can get up to a 4 terabyte SSD on that. I looked at it, though, and prepared to spend another $3,500 just for that. So if you have somebody that absolutely needs another 4 terabytes, who's probably rendering on the fly in the field.
Just my intro, though.
So, but the big feature of these new MacBook Pros is that they come with the T2 chip, like the iMac Pro, which means that they also come with secure boot, which means that you will not be able to boot this Mac out of the box from anything other than the hard drive itself. So no net boots, no USB boots, no FireWire. I think you actually can do FireWire and target disk mode on some of those, but I'm not entirely sure.
Thunderbolt?
Thunderbolt. Sorry, FireWire Thunderbolt. Showing my age again. So, yes, so I know it's possible to do something. I think Greg has done some imaging of the iMac Pros via, I think, Restore, but it's not a trivial process. So essentially, if you don't have a depth deployment plan in place already, you'll need to get one sooner rather than later, depending on what your ordering process is like. If you're anything like us, we'll probably start seeing these new models within a couple of weeks, if you don't have somebody who went out and already got them already. So.
Anybody here have one to play with?
We put in an order for test boxes, but we haven't seen them yet. So the 13-inch starts at $12.99, and the 15 starts at $23. So going on the security roundup, as we mentioned, USB restricted mode was introduced in 11.4.1. Specifically, if you power down your iOS device, or you don't touch it for at least an hour, it will basically require you to enter a passcode to enable everything. On the plus, On the plus side, if you power it down like you power everything else, so when you come back up, yeah, you won't be able to attach any USB devices when it powers back up. And so if that's a concern, a security concern for you, you should be able to upgrade to iOS 11.4.1 and at least have a little bit more peace of mind that way. I know talking about this feature in iOS 12, specifically, we should be able to still use DFU mode to restore an iOS device. I think there is some sort of check in there to see if that's being used. So if you need to wipe, like if somebody leaves it in the drawer, you need to wipe it to give it to somebody else. DFU mode should still work, is my understanding.
Do you think this is a response to the gray key?
Absolutely.
Okay. I was just wondering if everybody else was thinking.
This is probably a response to the gray key and the exploits of that nature. So while it may rankle law enforcement, ultimately Apple sides on the user privacy side, at least in these instances. So,
I believe you can manage it.
yeah, I think you should be able to manage it. I don't know if those profiles have been published yet, or the specs for those profiles.
I think they said they're coming.
Right.
Probably
I think Mike said they're coming.
Yeah. So yes, so looking forward to be able to managing this coming soon, moving on, we'll talk about. So there's a new malware dubbed OSX.dummy that specifically targeting cryptocurrency users. And the details of this just went right out of my head. The links for that are specific. Does anybody know specifically what the OSX dummy does? I think other than just steals your Bitcoin.
I was reading the reason it's called dummy is because there's a lot of files it installs that are called dummy this or dummy that.
Oh, okay.
And that it prompts the user to enter admin rights to install everything. It looks pretty shady when you're installing.
There's also a quote here that says, I'm calling it OSX dummy as the infection method is dumb, the massive size of the binary is dumb, the presence mechanism is lame and thus also dumb. The capabilities are rather limited and thus rather dumb. It's trivial to detect in every step, that dumb. And finally, the malware saves the user's password to dump dummy.
So it's a big pile of dummies. But interesting that it's targeting a specific subset of the users. So, probably see more attacks along those vectors as well. So big news, relatively. WPA 3 standard has been finalized and released, and will probably be a couple of years before we start seeing devices implementing that standard, at least widely. May see it sooner maybe in some larger organizations that refresh hardware a little bit more frequently, but that's coming. So there's lots of more security features with WPA 3, and hopefully we won't see things like broad pwn coming again. So, okay, moving on to a couple of items of interest. So Monkey 3.3.1 was released. This is bug fixes and mostly fixes authorized restarts for File Vault, and has preliminary support for Mojave. So for all the Monkey users out there, that's something that I'm sure the File Vault restarts is probably something I'm sure that I've been very looking forward to. So Fleet Smith is now integrated with Google Santa into their frameworks for application white and blacklisting, and there's a very detailed blog post. And I think one of the guys from Fleet Smith talked about this at either Mac DevOps YVR or MacAdmins. I'm not sure.
They were at Penn State last week.
Were they also Penn State? Did they also talk about this there at ESU?
We
Yeah,
How
that's
the
one
heck?
there. Oh,
You broke it.
all right. Thanks, Java pop-up.
The price is pretty
And conferences. So PSU MacAdmins was last week. Some of us went, others did not. Videos should probably be up soon. Usually they take about a couple of weeks. So maybe check back again, like middle towards the end of August, and see if the videos will be up. I heard Apple had a large presence at this conference and talked about many different things to many different people.
But we won't see those videos.
Hmm?
We won't see those videos.
Well, no, we will not see
It's
those
not around
videos,
that.
but it is encouraging that Apple is starting to go to these conferences and sort of reaching out to the community and
That's a-
getting the feedback.
Apparently that was the first conference Apple's sponsored, but actually.
Yes, it's the first they sponsored in like years. I think. So speaking of videos, if you missed Mac DevOps Live VR, which I think many of us did, videos are up now on YouTube. Not on their page directly, because I don't think they updated their page. They are in their YouTube video channel, and they have a link to the playlist in the slides here. So there's a couple there. There's a couple of videos that I'd be to check out from there. So stuff there. So and the last big conference coming up. There's a few others that we'll list next time, I think. They're starting to come up. I think the Mac Tech conference is coming up in November as well. I didn't get it to add to this slide. But Jazz Nation is coming up October, and again, I forgot to fix the dates. So it's I think it's the 21st to the 23rd.
23rd to the 23rd.
Yes.
It is the 22nd, or 23rd to the 25th.
23rd to the 25th. Okay. So yeah, so I gotta fix the slides. Link to the registration page. So early bird pricing for that actually ends today. $7.99, $6.99 for all you EDU folks.
So you're going.
So if you're planning on going, today is the day to register. You want to get the cheapest rates, relatively speaking. Tomorrow it jumps up to $8.99 for everybody. And then after September 20th, basically right before the conference, you're going to drop $1,200. Which is fractionally cheaper than WWDC, but there you go. So big news is that both myself and John Mallman will be presenting. We'll have presentations at JNUC this year. So Philly will be representing in the speakers group at JNUC. So that's something to celebrate here, yes. That's pretty much all we have for this meeting. This is kind of in between. We usually have longer what's news since we're usually doing them every other month, but we got a couple of things. So that's pretty much all I have, and we can go to the open discussion.
Just like to point out, I'm not on the camera, but hopefully you'll hear me. Next month we will have Jeff Porton speaking.
Oh yes. So
He
yes,
just
next
had his
month.
book released. I can't
Yeah.
remember what it's
So to
called.
reiterate everybody, so we can pick it up on the mic, is next month we'll be back at the Walnut Street Apple Store, when we will also have Jeff Porton speaking to us. He has just published a book, and he'll be talking about that, Imagine for Us. So more details as we get them, but look out for that meeting and make your reservations for that soon. So that's pretty much it. We have open discussions. So anybody has something you want to bring up? Yes.
I got a question going back to the was it the MacBook for 2018 with the secure boot,
Yes.
right? And so if we could talk about that a little bit, because one of the things we do at the university is we do the create install media, okay,
Right.
flash drives, and we do all kinds of stuff with that, okay. So does that mean that something like that's not going to be
Out of the box? Yeah. It's not going to work out of the box. You can disable secure boot, but you have to basically boot it up, create a user, and then make sure that user has a secure token, and then you can disable secure boot at that point. You can change the settings on that. But out of the box, it will not work.
Okay.
Yes, so that's why it's particularly challenging.
Oh, wait, no, you can't.
So that's,
You have to go create a user first.
Is it
Right.
disabled firmware, or is it disabled just for that instance? You can't wipe it.
needs a secure
And-
token.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you need a secure token in order to disable.
In order to override the secure boot settings, then you can boot to other
So-
things.
Yeah, because that's set in the EFI firmware.
Little anecdote, I had a friend who bought one on day one, and he didn't want to just sign in and stuff. He wanted to just clear his computer and then put his stuff on, and as soon as he did it, he couldn't boot it, he bricked it, basically. And I don't know the process for restoring it. You probably have to hook it up to Configurator or bring it to an Apple store. If you try to wipe your machine and you don't have an account created and you basically will blow, like even if you do Command R,
Yeah,
go back to
right.
factory and you don't have an account, it bricks it basically. Wow. Because it'll boot into the mode and then it'll say like, click here to disable secure boot. And when you click it, it says, oh, no administrator account found. And it errors out.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I think they discovered that on the iMac Pros as well.
yeah, so I think that's why they're adding, you have to plug it into Configurator, I believe, to restore it.
But once you've logged in and you do disable it, you can then wipe it and then boot from the network for.
I believe so.
But you gotta match up the OS release because it's a
Yes.
special build.
Yeah, because because then you're still with the same problems. You have to apply firmware in addition to just the OS.
The OS is a custom build.
Yeah.
So
here's what's fun too.
So
Is the Max with the T2 chip, I'm reading from the, from a article from Apple, HT202770. At the bottom it says, Mac computers that have an Apple T2 chip don't support starting up from network volumes. So it seems that it doesn't work at all.
So
it will if you.
And that's
disable
that's
secure
MacBooks,
boot.
right? Are they gonna be, is that gonna be going out to like iMacs and?
well, it's in the iMac Pro.
That's the,
And if it's in the MacBook Pro,
it's not a matter of time until we see it everywhere.
Yeah, probably, because it's.
it's just a matter of time, yeah.
Right.
I'm presuming that the consumer models obviously are going to get it last. And they may, or it's hard to tell, they may or may not decide that consumer models don't get the T2 chip just to have something.
Because
Right.
they literally just pulled the plug on the 2015 Max. They still have one machine, right, that does, they offer, the 13-inch, does that have a T2?
Yeah.
Okay, so they have one machine then, one MacBook that does not have a T2, I believe.
Yeah, one MacBook
One.
Pro,
Well,
like the
Right, MacBook Pro,
the 2017 13-inch.
it's the only one right now,
Pro.
so if you're worried about that stuff,
I think they probably.
pick them up, just like when the iPads came out, newer iPads came out, they were doing the iPad 2s, they keep them
They're not
around for a while.
manufacturing.
What does that have to do, something
Yeah.
different, like
Yeah.
how we do our certain admin or whatever, what does that have to do a different way?
Yeah,
You buy a regular MacBook.
Apple giving us more.
Or a MacBook Air.
Right.
You know what
a
it is?
MacBook, a MacBook Air, no
Security
T2
stuff.
chip, you can still
Yeah.
image.
Apple, Apple saw its admins getting lazy because of all the automation. They're like, hey, you know what? Let's give them more work.
Anything else?
If you haven't, the new keyboard on the 2018, they added a film over top of this
Oh,
as a
right,
mechanism.
Yeah. For sound reduction.
It's for sound reduction, but if you look at the patent for it, it's actually to keep
Dust.
dirt and dust out of it. So it helps because my computer is already in repair. Twice.
Yeah, I haven't seen the new keyboards, but
It's almost the same feeling I've heard, but it just sounds different. It's just like,
I was typing on one today.
I have to go to the Apple Store more. So we'll see.
Are they gonna put the new keyboard on?
I have no
your
idea.
computer?
That'd be cool.
That'd be nice.
It's only 2017, so it's not old. It's just, if I would have known that was coming out, but they're buying new machines at university tomorrow. So
Oh, boy.
they're not giving me one. I won't
it's
get a new one for
probably going to be a couple weeks before we get start getting the new ones in, because we have a lot of current stock to work through.
I won't get a new one.
Oh, yeah, asking, it's an unrelated question to what,
So
That's okay.
this is open discussion now.
has anyone visited the new Apple Park? Because I'm gonna be going out there.
Apple Park in San Jose?
Yep.
I was there when I was at WWDC. So in the middle of it is a regular Apple store with a few things that you can only get at Apple Park. So they have Apple Park T-shirts and Apple Park branded other doodads, but it's still just an Apple store in general. They do have a interactive map of the campus. You can basically they have an iPad that you can put up, and as you're going over this giant wooden map of it, it'll show you parts of the campus and what's inside and all that stuff. So it's kind of like a VR experience in that way. And there's also a cafe on the far end, where you can go in and, you know, cafe. You can buy coffee, drinks, and eat food there, which is always weird at an Apple store. If you go upstairs, they have an observation deck. You can look across the street at the giant Apple Park. So I have some pictures if you want to see.
I saw that stuff online, and we have a Apple rep at Temple. I don't know if you know Michael Walk.
Yeah, he's over there.
Okay. And I always try to, you know, work with him. It's like, hey, Mike, can you get me into, you know, Apple Park? It's like, nope, can't do it. It's like, really? You know, it's like, so it looks like, you know, we can't. It's really hard to get in that.
Yeah, so that Apple store across the street is essentially the closest to its ability you can get.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's nice.
What about Infinite Loop? I mean, that's
Infinite Loop. I mean, you can still go. They have an Apple store there.
Yeah.
When I was there, so I got a tour like maybe 12 years ago now. I think it's like 12 years ago. 2006, 2007. That sounds about right. 12 years ago. So I got like a very, very limited tour of like very specific area. Did not see any saw very few regular employees and did not engage with any of them.
You know, I had better luck with Google. They had the headquarters in New York City, and we knew someone there, so we were able to get that place, and that was pretty amazing. But it just seems like Apple's just
they like their secrets.
Yeah.
So.
Because I was going to ask you guys if you guys know like any way to like, you know, get into place, you know.
That's really what the question is.
So far
I don't want to jump the fence because then they'll probably.
So far, the only people I know who've gotten inside Apple Park are new hires.
So get hired.
Job interview.
I thought about that too. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to try something like that, you know, see if like.
Or binoculars from across the street.
Or a drone. They'll probably shoot it
Yeah.
down. They'll probably shoot it
They
down.
throw you in the back of a dark van and
Yeah.
the back over your head.
You gotta be like sneakers, you just gotta listen.
Sharks with laser beams.
Is that the moat? The moat around it?
Really crazy.
Got a big turret in the middle. Any other open discussion that's non-DNA breaking?
NDA.
Or-
If we want to do
Not
NDA,
DNA.
if we want to NDA, we can kill the screen.
Yeah, just give me the word.
Wait, can I? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm asking all these questions.
No,
Like,
ask-
Quite all
this
right.
is like the opportunity.
This is the whole point.
Right? So, one of the things that we see at the university, and you guys probably, when I mentioned this, you're like, yeah, that is kind of a problem, right? And so, on a MacBook, before you log in, and the machines in the enterprise, okay, so we put all the machines in the enterprise, we have a certain way of doing it, right? You cannot connect to Wi-Fi before you log in,
Correct.
and that's a problem. You can do it on a Windows 10 machine, and
You can, but you have to set it up a
You
certain way, right?
can, but depending on how, you can set up a Wi-Fi profile.
Right.
And we used to do this years ago.
Mhm.
The problem is File Vault. Because
we don't
when
use
you,
File Vault though.
because when you log into File Vault
We don't use it.
and you enter your password there, that does not get passed to the login window to connect to Wi-Fi. So, so the only way to actually do that is to turn off the automatic login from File Vault, which is just a key that you could set in the profile.
Mhm.
But in that instance, you're getting two logins. So you unlock File Vault, and then it takes you to the regular login window, and then you can log in at that point. And then if you have the Wi-Fi profile set up at that point, then you can log into Wi-Fi at login. So, but yeah,
Because I'm thinking, like, for instance, like when you get new machines, we get new machines from Apple, right? And we're configuring these things. We got to set them up for clients, you know. I mean, we bring out like our USB-C to Ethernet adapter, you know, because we got to get them, you know, logged on. But see, what happens then too is that you see then when, you know, here or at Temple, we have the periodic password changes. So then when the password changes, then they can't get into the machines if they're not on the Ethernet. You see.
So I know I've asked a couple of Apple SEs about this, and they're like, if you create a Wi-Fi network that says Apple Store,
It'll automatically connect.
it'll automatically connect.
It's a cheat.
Yes, it's a cheat.
Yeah, see, that's not going to work. I know it's not going to. And the other thing I just wanted to mention too is that
I mean, it's an option.
It works. I mean, that's how we've done it for.
we have TU Secure Wireless, and that's something that we all have to use.
Can you control?
Like in something like that, I was going to set something like that. It would be a separate build of VLAN attached to a wireless device that broadcasts that. So it's segregated off
too, right?
Yeah, so it's segregated off at least in some that sort of way. So it doesn't have wider access to to your network.
The other thing I wanted to mention too is that to me it's been a pretty frustrating experience because to me I had to go through layers and layers to me, like I'm just trying to get like information from Apple. I went through feedback, you know, went through their support, and then some of even like you would get a message back like, well, we're not gonna really let you know what's going on here. I forget what it actually was. It's like, what? It's like we're not gonna even contact you. It's like, what? And then like I just feel like this is like, to me, it's just like Apple is not responsive like I thought they would be. And to me,
well,
I mean, think about it. Microsoft did it. They did it on the Windows 10 interface. They did it. They probably got pressure from consumers and.
Well, one of the things that, you know, I when I was at WWC and speaking to a lot of engineers, one of the things they do point out is, you know, for good or for ill, but the whole secure token implementation and UAMDM, sorry, not secure token, the whole UMDM deployment was supposed to happen at 10.13.0. But based on feedback they got from the MacAdmins community and vendors, they pushed that back, which is something that they made a point of telling me was something they traditionally did not do. Like, if this had happened a year or two, or 3, 4, 5 years ago, UAMDM and UAKEL would have happened 10.13.0.
Yeah, and we were in
10.13.0 day one, and everybody's scrambling. So the upshot from a lot of my discussions with engineers at WWDC is that they are definitely more open now than they have been in the past to hearing feedback from not just users but also admins and all that. So I mean, Apple's going to keep their secrets as much as possible, but at least my impression is that they recognize that they need to do a better job of communicating with our community about the changes that are coming. And there's definitely people within the organization that recognize that and will at least champion our cause.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's interesting you said that there was a bigger Apple presence at the
at PSU Mac, which I think is another good sign of that, is that they want to hear input from the community. And I think Mike Boylan was soliciting people who wanted to actually talk one-on-one if they had some things. So I don't know I don't know if anybody from our group ended up in one of those sessions, but
Amanda did.
what?
Amanda did.
Amanda did. Yeah. She's a good one to end up in there. So yes, I know she has a lot of good ideas. So
that's why this is a good thing. Sorry to interrupt. Like that, we all have different experiences with all this. That we all call out together and figure out how we're going to move through all these new changes in security. So, and I mean, Apple is giving us the tools. I was really happy this week when I came back from vacation last week. I found that 10.14 beta 3, the race install flag works on spinning drives. So when you now push out 10.13 or 10.14's installer has a flag in it from 10.13 that only works on APFS drives. Well, APFS is now going to be on all drives starting in 10.14. I believe it's now default.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
That's not NDA.
Everything's gonna be SSD.
It still works on spinning drives, but
Yeah.
you can now just hit this flag and it will reboot
So
the
I
computer.
think the caveat there is that it'll work on spinning.
It's not
disk,
recommended.
but you're probably not going to enjoy it.
Mm. Yeah.
I've heard that there's some performance improvements coming. for
Still, I
APFS,
mean,
but
just the performance shift just between hard disk drives now and SSDs now. I mean, you're going to notice it.
yeah,
Yeah.
but,
You can actually, I mean, I was doing some tests with creating snapshots and copying files on 10.14 on a spinning drive, and it's lickety split. It actually does have a performance. I was floored when I hit snapshot, it's like boom, it's done. I was like, what? So yeah, I don't know. It's probably not. It's not like SSD because obviously SSD is instantaneous, but still, it's pretty darn close.
so, I mean, speaking of other resources that Apple has put out there for our community, there's the Apple Seed for IT. And I think you can talk to your SE about getting an invite to that.
Right.
Basically, that gives you similar access to a developer membership and a dedicated feedback channel. So you install these or in this case, Apple Seed betas on hardware, and there's a feedback tool there that you can use. And that that bypasses a lot of the consumer stuff to get to the right engineers.
So yeah, that was the thing.
Yeah, for the brand new stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the thing. They look at radars, they will look at cases, enterprise and education if you have one of those accounts. So they'll look at those. They will, the feedback for any of the beta stuff, the feedback app. So that all gets to them. So that's all the so that's all the things that they're looking at to get feedback from. So those are the channels that they're looking at. So if you can get on board the Apple CIT, that will be a big help because pretty much you can test everything there, get access to the betas. They'll provide test plans like check for these things specifically. Like I know in the Mojave stuff, there had some things for mail for Exchange accounts, since there's some changes coming in Mojave for that. Things like that. So yeah. So and yes, they'll respond to that. If you have like well, for us, we have an enterprise account. We're at the alliance level, so we get a dedicated account rep plus the SE and the sales engineer as well, and who come out, like the SE and our account rep will come out, and we have just an overall AppleCare rep as well. Working with them has been, there's always been good for us. I mean, my last SE, known for like years. But yeah, they're definitely trying to make things work better, and they're always a good conduit for you to send things. Like if you have an AppleCare rep, they'll tell you to create a case and stuff like that, and they'll follow up. They should be following it up for you at that point. So I'm not sure if that works on the education side, if they have something similar, but
Apple Seed for IT is also.
right. Yeah, so those are definitely, yes, you want to get feedback to Apple, those are the channels, so try to get on board on some of those so you can get a little bit more direct feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I went through some of the channels that Michael Walk suggested, and went through some of those,
Right.
but, so, we'll see. I mean, hopefully something, will come out of it.
Right. I think the other thing is, of course, is that if you have an impact statement, like how many users/devices.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say was, I know they're still trying to get you to buy a great support package, but the
Right.
numbers always make the difference. If you
Yep.
can say you've got 11,000.
I mean, we're enterprise, like a lot of other places, and so I think they would know that. And it just occurred to me, it's like, we can't be the
Well-
only enterprise that has that problem.
It's like, so your account reps know, but when you're doing things like sending feedback or opening a radar, like the people on those areas may not know the impact. So
Oh,
that's
yeah,
always an
so-
idea. So it's always a good idea to include that so they can see that and have an idea of how many devices and users this is affecting. So, yeah, always include an impact statement. So do we want to talk about some NDA stuff?
I haven't looked at them on the pages for a while.
If we do, we should kill it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
All right.
so we'll see everybody next month back at the Apple Store.
All right.